You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Hello, good afternoon, at least on the Pacific Coast. This is Mike Balzer from All Things 3D, and this is our 3D in review. We've missed 2 weeks. We were out for July, and as if you read anything that I've been talking about, I was at TEDx in Spain. Let's see, I guess last week, July 4th is when I gave the presentation. The gentleman behind me is Nicolas, who's also one of the speakers there, and he has come up with a very revolutionary type technique. If you notice, he's giving a demonstration behind me of where he has what would you call sensors that sense muscle contraction and allow him to actually move the hand. Now, when we were there, he had a more interesting prototype available that he showed us, and he actually was wearing it and was reaching out and you know, shaking people's hands. As many people, I was first caught off guard a little bit, but I noticed when I shook hands with him, he actually gripped my hand, and it was kind of a natural grip. Actually, all the fingers activated properly, and I thought that was extremely cool on how that actually worked out. And the sense that I felt of, you know, actually working or gripping somebody's hand. So again, I'd like to hopefully he'll come on in about 20 minutes. He is from France, and he'll be joining us. I think it's about 8 or 9 o'clock there. So I appreciate him coming in a little bit later today to talk about, as he calls it, the Bionicle Hand. And again, that will probably be one of the TED Talks that'll be released later on this week or next week. Okay, so let's kind of move on into a little bit what I want to talk about. As mentioned, I was at the TEDx, I believe it's Cibeles or Cibeles. Sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly again. But my wife and I, Pamela, as you know, have been following the show, have known for some time, had a brain tumor. So they invited us to tell us our story and how we collaborated using technology and the great surgeons that were involved in this procedure in order to remove it through the upper part of her left eye. You know, it was very emotional for me, and we actually received a standing ovation for it. So I thank them for joining us, or inviting us there and allowing us to participate and tell our story. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was, let's see if we can scroll down, is the people behind this. Wonderful group of people. First, I want to say hats off to all the volunteers that were part of this. They treated us very, very well. We were put up in a very nice hotel, and they came and got us. They fed us. They made sure that we could concentrate on actually giving the best presentation we could. But the other thing was the other interesting people that were presenting along with me. Now my friends that we spent some time with, here you can see them behind me. They range from the guy off to the left who was actually part of designing something for NASA and was accepted for that. So he got to talk about that. And Francois, who actually does a photo gallery of people that look alike. That was a very interesting story. Very, very fun character. Ned, he's on the East Coast. I think he's from New York, but he actually works with a lot of paraplegics and exercise. He talks about that. Nicolas here, who we'll have on later, created his bionic hand. Very cool product. Shama had talked about her program. And then, you know, quite a few of these others. Urmi, she had a wonderful story about her own what was going on in her own country. I think she is from India. And so part of the reason I'm kind of stumbling a little bit is that we were back in the green room and we didn't get a lot of sound. So I'm looking forward to these videos actually being available to us. But a lot of good groups, a lot of people doing a lot of interesting things, like CURA is from Italy, who's working on creating green architecture. So, I mean, there was a lot of very interesting talks, and I hope all of them are available on TED when they be, you know, I guess they have to accept one or the other. So a lot of good people there. The whole group that was behind it, again, were volunteers. They weren't getting paid for it, but they were very professional. and very smart. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to work with them. All right, let's move into the first item, and that is CURA. Uh, for those of you who have Ultimakers or love the CURA slicer, they've come out with some new features. So let's kind of go through them really quick. If you're into it, a new plugin based system using the Uranium framework, which I'm not familiar with, but it gives it more flexibility so that if you can add your own features to it. They've overhauled the user interface, which I already thought was pretty exceptional. Time quality slicer. They provide either quality or time slicing, which is something new that allows you to obviously identify if you want quality or speed. And what's interesting is the Ultimaker now claims a resolution of 20 microns or 25 vertical slice now for their Ultimaker printers. So I'm assuming this is hand in hand with that. Excuse me. So we also have support for higher DP screens. I guess that is extremely important if you want high quality models. But as you can see here, a lot of tons of features. It is available now, and you should be able to go ahead and download it. Like I said, a lot of features. I plan to look at it more over the week and give you a better idea of what I think of it next week, or Chris, who also uses the CURA engine. So I don't know where they're at today. I have not heard from them. So hopefully they will join us a little later. I am wondering if we should go back to our 9:30 time. If you have any feedback from you, let me know. I know most of you don't. In fact, I have no zero. Oh, there's James. Hello, James. How are you this morning? I cannot hear you. You're muted. And actually this morning, sorry, it is this afternoon. So he's gone away. He'll come back, but luckily he's joining us and he can fill us in on something else we'll talk about. So CURA, great product. Those of you who have been using it over the years, keep in mind it is also open source. They do support other printers other than their own. And so take a look at it. It's kind of neat. All right, on to the next item. We've talked about Onshape before, and I was hoping to have Joe on, but he's on vacation. But what they're wanting to launch, and let's see, I think I have a little, no, I don't have a little video on that, but they're going to be launching a webinar, and this is why I'm talking about next week, and how they have partnered with, let's see, I'll go ahead and jump to it. They're going to be doing a webinar on the 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. They have joined up with Maxwell Render, and I'm very familiar with Maxwell Render from, gosh, years ago, back in 2003, 2004, when they first launched it. It is a photon-based photorealistic renderer. And at the time, it wasn't GPU supported, but it was very realistic. And for those of you who have done some 3D rendering in the past, this was a kind of a groundbreaking product. So it looks like they partnered with Onshape, and this is probably an example here of what it can create. But if you've been using Fusion 360, well, Onshape, welcome to the club. You'll be able to provide photorealistic renders. Now, I'm hoping to do an interview with them. There he is. I can hear him now. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello, James. How are you this morning?
Sorry, I came in unprepared. Didn't have my headset on. My microphone was unplugged. Sorry about that.
Better work on that. No problem. I was a little sluggish today as well. I'm still probably recovering from my Spanish quest. So I had already talked about it, so you'll have to go ahead and look back on it, but I covered a little bit about the TEDx and the great people I met. In fact, hopefully in about 20 minutes, we'll have somebody that I had met there who gave a great talk about his, and this is his word, robotica. Is that right? No, I've already forgotten it. Hand. He's literally using kind of muscle sensors to be able to control the fingers. And he was literally walking around with one of his, I guess, production prototypes and holding people's hands and handshaking, and the actual fingers would move in a very realistic manner. So it was very cool. was taken a little bit aback by it, but the second time though, I was eager to shake his hand when he left. So
You
cool
said
guy.
they use muscle wire, or
I don't. Well, hopefully you can ask him that question when he comes on. Actually, he uses sensors that detect the contraction in the upper part of the amputee to control the fingers. So there's probably some training involved, but we'll ask some more questions when he comes on.
Cool.
He'll be joining us. I think it's either 8:30 or 9:30 their time, Pacific Standard, or not Pacific. What do they call it? Central. Well, it's +2 UTC, so I think it's 9-hour difference between us. At least that's what it was in Spain, or otherwise it's an 8-hour difference. Either way, he'll be joining us. Cross our fingers. So something that you may or may not have been aware of, James, is a product called Onshape. I know that we're both involved in Fusion 360, but they came aboard, gosh, about 6 months ago, creating a cloud-based CAD program, 3D CAD program, just like Fusion 360. And they've really moved forward with it. And they are going to release, I just got this yesterday, it's a webinar for how they're incorporating Maxwell Render. And I know back in the days when I was the IT for the architectural firm, Maxwell Render, when it came out, was like a leap ahead of any other render at the time because it created photorealistic capability. Well, they're joining up, so that kind of excited me. So maybe, I don't know exactly when we'll do an interview, but it'll be a 20 or 30-minute interview to get a much better overview of Onshape. I'll jump back to the link so that if you're not familiar with Onshape, this will give you a great overview. But it's, how we were talking about how SolidWorks just is too pricey, and then Fusion 360 is for us poor folks. Well, it appears Onshape was founded by some of the people from SolidWorks, and their pricing is very competitive with Fusion 360. So if you're into SolidWorks, I think there's a lot of similarities there. So you may be able to cross over with that versus Fusion 360. Since I've invested in Fusion 360, I haven't had a lot of time to talk or use Onshape, but from what I've seen and played with it, it's really got a lot of features now. And so I'm scrolling through it really quick.
Yeah, there's certain things with Fusion 360, just little bugs, like I can't delete certain things after I slice them into different pieces. If I delete one piece, it deletes everything, or it combines it back. Just little weird things, but that's my gripe with Fusion 360. So I wouldn't mind messing around with this one.
There's still some growing pains, and hopefully, if you remember when we had, I can't think of his name now, from Fusion 360, I mentioned, not by name, but the product I was talking about was Onshape. So nice thing about it is when you have competition, kind of hold your feet to the fire and keep you all moving forward. So I have a feeling that both have progressed because of it. So, you can go back and look at the website. There will be links in the show notes on it. But it does look like a very interesting product, and I have tinkered with it, and it really has progressed in the last 6 months to be a kind of a go-to product for probably a lot of people. And now that they have photorealistic rendering capability, it's almost a complete package. Again, as mentioned, it has the ability to collaborate, which is one of Fusion 360's main strengths, as well as a lot of features of both design, data management, both 2D and 3D drawing, which Fusion 360 does, but it's kind of a roundabout way. You do your 3D, and then you can then explode it into a 2D orthographic view, which I've tinkered with and had to use. But very interesting product. Like I said, we'll do an interview next week and talk more about that. So as I mentioned, I already talked about, let's see where I'm in my notes. Oh, my machine already went to sleep. Great. Okay. So as mentioned, we already had the CURA. Chris was going to talk about NASA launches a Mars Trek, but he's not here. I'll wait for him to come back if he does show up. We just talked about the Onshape Maxwell Renderer. So I want to kind of talk about some of the things that I have been working on. you know, I've been working for some time, right, on the scanner application. Well, I've been
Yep.
in touch again with Shriners, letting them know that I've made a lot of progress. So next week, we're going to do kind of a live demo using Google Hangouts on Air with the directors of Shriners to kind of give an overview. A little backstory, I was told that they bought a $100,000 scanner system that sadly you have to move the patients to. It's like a mobile system, like a scanning booth. And so they have to put them in it, scan them. And from what I heard, it's pretty uncomfortable. But the other problem is that it exports a file that can't be read by their garment system. You know, this is why they bought it. So I think that's kind of funny that you spend $100,000 and you don't know that until you have it in place that it's not compatible. So
Yeah.
hopefully
Whoops.
in our conversation, yeah, whoops, we'll know exactly what they need for their garment system and be able to support that. So that's obviously something I have been working on, and we'll be prepared for next week. It's always something new, right, James?
Always something new.
Yeah. Okay, and then since Bryan isn't joining us, I wish people would at least tell me they can't join us. We have the Go4D C1 glass demo that's available. That's kind of cool. I was giving a demo last night to our Cocoa Heads, which is a developer group for Apple developers for iOS or the Apple platform. And so I was showing them my progress with NeoDVR and now what I call the Environmental Awareness VR, or E, lowercase v, I'm sorry, E, uppercase A, VR. That's what I'm now going to coin is environmental. But somebody had downloaded this while I was giving the talk because I had given out a few pairs of those new glasses. Did you want some of these glasses, James?
Hey, I wouldn't mind checking them out.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thought you had a name on it. It said James. I couldn't figure out why I put James on them. But okay, now I remember. So I'll make sure those get out to you. But I found this. It's called Go4D VR Spaceship. And let me jump to my screen here. And it was actually very well done. And I thought to myself, wow, let me contact the CEO of Go4D and see if we can, you know, enable it with EAVR and have the ability to walk around in it. It actually is a pretty nice little demo. So once you get them, make sure you download it. It's available for both Android and iOS devices. And if you've seen my demonstration, you literally clip them on the front so that you can look at your screen through them, and it gives you a really nice VR experience at a very little cost. But I think they made it more for their goggle system, and I don't know if I kind of talked about it, but they also have a goggle system. But I found it works just as well with the Hamido goggle system and my NeoD mount case, or the combination package of the NeoD VR system. It was pretty good and pretty immersive. You actually felt like it. Sad thing is I wanted to walk around, and guess what? You can't because it hasn't been EAVR enabled. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. But it looked like a really neat demo. You go around and collect 10 health boxes in order to keep yourself alive to go through this tour. So very neat, well done. And again, you know, for the price of the Neo, I guess the special price is over, but for $19.95, you can get yourself a pair from me, or you can buy it from Go4D directly. Plus, as mentioned, if you buy the case system, they're included free. So if you've already got a need for the sensor, you can buy my case. I think it's 59. I think it's 59, or no, I think it's now 65, but it includes free the glass set. So for basically extra $5 over the original price, you're getting a free pair of very cool VR glasses that are very portable. So that is that item. And let's see what else I've got here. Oh, I want to show this off. Let's see if this will work. I'm going to jump to this camera. I have been working on something I'm going to call MedStop, but I found a way to be able to work in Unity, create an environment, and then export it as a collada file, which is a DAE file. You might be familiar with that. It's a 3D file. It's an open source 3D file format. directly in the scene kit. And so this is an example. I haven't enabled it with the EAVR because the SDK, even though they sent it out yesterday, it didn't work properly, so I wasn't able to even play with it. But look forward to them fixing it and getting it to me. But I'll show you this. I think it's pretty cool. So let's see. So this is a system that I've downloaded and created in SceneKit. So literally you start off sitting behind a desk. So the instruction will be sit down with your goggle system, and then you can actually get up, walk around, and look at stuff in your office.
Cool.
This is this character could be animated, but I didn't do so. So you could literally have like a conversation with a patient or something like that in this little environment. So very easy to do. So once I get this all working, I'll put together a little tutorial so those people who are not familiar with iOS or SceneKit can start doing their own stuff. I'm also hoping that they come out with a Unity SDK for those people who are versed in that and can be able to do this kind of stuff with that as well. But yeah, I find it pretty interesting and exciting, all the stuff that's coming out and all the work people are doing around the world, which is the title of this, you know, big thinkers everywhere. Everywhere. Just look behind you. There's one behind you, James, right now, a big thinker.
Oh, there was a mirror. There was a mirror.
Funny one. I wonder where you got that humor from.
Yeah.
Must have been his grandfather. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. I'm using my Android device, and it keeps turning off to say battery power. So it's not good. So we're getting through this. So did you get a chance to play with the new Simplify 3D, Mr. James?
I did. The only thing that I've kind of I guess messed around with that's new to me that I've done is build supports only from the platform, which is huge for me because there's a lot of pieces, a lot of supports that I would go through manually and delete, and kept only the ones from the platform up to the piece. So I was constantly removing, you know, supports that I didn't need, but that feature alone has saved me a bunch of time and just it's made my prints a lot easier to print. So
cool.
Bravo to them.
I've got a little video to show a little bit later, and I also we'll talk about it, and then you can give us your feedback as well. I received the video demo the other day from them, so we'll be playing that. Okay, so let's see what else. Actually, I may not have had my camera up, so I apologize to those of you on YouTube. If I don't make sure my camera is a live one, then all you see is a little tiny picture. So what I'm going to do is go through really quickly to some of the things that I was showing off. This is what I call MedStop. This is something I worked in Unity and exported in the SceneKit, and I will enable it for the ability to use the, as I call it, the Environmental Awareness VR, or EAVR, so that you'll be able to walk around in an office about the size of your own living room. Fancy that. And then let's see, jump back to the Go4D real quick. So again, sorry, James, but if I don't remember the camera, and there's no way for you to know what camera's up, which is sad to remind me. So again, behind me is the Go4D VR spaceship. Really cool app. Takes an opportunity to download it. It's free if you already have some type of VR glass system or goggles. If not, you know where to find them. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next item. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I'll come back to it. This is kind of funny. This is the Dubai. It's going to print the world's first 3D printed office building. And I guess this is a visual. Okay. So I thought that was kind of neat. And then I noticed there was a name that was associated down here later on, and I'll bring up that link. But it is our friends from China, Winsun Global. Do you remember we talked about this? Whoops, wrong thing. Here we go. Remember the apartment building that was printed in this building here? Were you on that
No, I
episode?
wasn't on that one. No.
Okay, so they 3D printed this and then brought in the sections to assemble it. So as you can see, here's the actual 3D printed threads.
Oh.
And so we had talked about it for a few minutes, and we thought it was really cool, the whole process. But it appears that they've hired them to print out this building here. And I guess this is some demos. So notice the threading here on the sides.
Oh, I see. So they would flip it from, they would kind of tilt it down, or they would print it this way, and then they would ship it and bring it down.
Exactly. So they'll probably make modules and then ship the modules and then assemble the rest of the components in it. So one of the things that were cool is when they 3D printed, they put all the cavities for all the wiring, everything built into it directly. So the assembly process was kind of like a plug and play functionality. They were able to, in that previous, use materials, recyclable materials to actually extrude. And what else did they do? All they had to do is reinforce it with rebar in order for it's kind of like a concrete type material. So they talked about some great savings. I don't remember the number now, but it was pretty eye-opening. So it's kind of cool that they've gone to them to say, hey, let's, between China and Dubai, one of them always has to be the one on top and the new or the largest or the tallest. So
it would be interesting to see how they're doing the electrical and the plumbing and the mechanical systems, seeing how they're integrating that into their actual print.
Actually, the images here aren't available, but go out to Winson and you can just do a search for them and you can see what I'm talking about. It's like they embedded all of that into it so it was all like a plug and play process, right into the printing process itself. They didn't print them, obviously, but they were able to create channels for all the conduits.
Gotcha.
And
kind of create maybe a void or a channel.
Yep, that's what it looked like. So again, take some time, look at it, James, and obviously with your engineering skills, you'll be able to report back and tell us what you think they're doing. So that's kind of our architecture, and then I'm going to hang off and see when Nicolas can join us so he can talk about his. If he doesn't, I will go ahead and talk about it a little more. He's got a blog site that he's been reporting as well as a video. So I'm going to find the little dual extrusion wizard, and I'm going to play that now so that we can see it. And I don't know if the volume is too loud. Can you hear it, James?
I can hear it.
Is it too loud?
Today, we're exploring the Dual Extrusion Wizard and Simplify 3D, which will help you create high-quality dual-color prints. It can be found.
So can you hear me over the top of it?
Yep.
I've imported this dual-color
So this is a pretty good demo because what it says is that you have to create two STLs and then bring them in. And between that, the wizard allows you to import those two STLs.
Which has these vertical stripes here, you can see that there are two distinct parts that will fit together. And as I walk through the wizard, you'll see exactly how that happens. So let's open the wizard by going to Tools, Dual Extrusion Wizard. This window will help us configure the basic settings for this print. Here is where we can see which printer we're using.
Notice the
if you don't have any profiles loaded that are capable of dual extrusion, you'll receive a warning message while trying to open the wizard. So make sure to use the configuration assistant to load a dual extrusion profile first. Today, I'm using the FlashForge Creator Dual. Although I have many other printer profiles loaded into the software, only my dual extrusion printers are showing up in this list. I have 2 spools of ABS loaded onto my machine, so I'll also need to change the material configuration. This will heat both my extruders to the proper temperature for ABS. Now, if you have some other combination of materials that you want to use, for example, red ABS with blue PLA, you would first have to add that into your profile's material configuration, similar to what we've done here with PLA for the right and PVA for the left. But we'll cover that in a different video. Here is where the wizard has automatically chosen which part will print with which extruder. But if I wanted to print part 1 of my vase,
well, I don't know if you can pause it or not.
easily change that here.
You want me
Yeah,
to
just pause it real quick.
Okay.
You know, one of the problems I've had actually, you know, the hips filament, I actually had to return it because I couldn't get it to print with the ABS or PLA. It would kind of not, I guess, mold into the other plastics. So maybe this is what she's bringing up, is if you need two different materials, you have to actually configure it that way, because I couldn't get them to stick together. So I couldn't even use hips with my print. So far, all I've done with my dual extruder is only used one side of the extruder. I haven't used both sides. So maybe that's part of what this software will allow me to do. Upgrade.
Well, it's interesting. In the wizard here, which I'll start up again, it shows material configuration ABS. So I don't know.
But they had PLA and PVA down at the bottom when I was looking at it. So interesting.
Okay.
There's one other aspect of the wizard I want to point out because it has some powerful
Well, in the
functionality.
demo, obviously, they're just
We've talked about
using
grouping
two
and
ABS
aligning
materials
models
to
in
print
previous
two different
videos,
colors.
but this little checkbox makes it even easier. When I
That
click
would make
OK,
sense, because I'm assuming that
you'll see
both
that the
had
wizard
different
has
melting
aligned and
points.
grouped the two parts together so
if
they
they've
act as
cooled
one
before
model.
you can blend the two
As we've
together
discussed in
or
previous
fuse,
videos,
then
if I
yes,
now
you
want to
probably weren't
move
able to get
or
the
scale or even
layers
rotate my
to
model, because the models are
diffuse,
grouped,
and
they stay
they're probably
locked
separated,
together.
or
You
maybe
can
you
also
didn't
see that two processes have been
even allow you to
created,
create the
one for
product.
each
You had
color.
spaghetti.
And they've
Yeah.
even been grouped to make them easier to work with. We've talked about the advantages of grouped processes in an earlier video. So now we'll click Prepare to Print to go into the preview mode. We obviously want to print both colors, so we leave both processes selected. Now, every time you're doing dual extrusion, I recommend changing the coloring in the preview mode to show the active tool head, so you can verify which tool head is printing which part of the model. So if we zoom in on our part here, you can see that the blue represents tool 0, which is the right extruder on my printer, and green represents tool 1, which is typically the left extruder. Now you may notice that the shape of this model looks just a little bit different.
Hi, Nicolas. Let us get through with this little video demo, and then I will introduce you in just a second.
In the preview. This is because of the ooze shield, a feature that forms an external shell around your dual extrusion prints for the purposes of catching any oozing filament. And you can just throw it away after the print is complete. The ooze shield is standard for all of Simplify 3D's dual extrusion profiles. Here's a time lapse of what the model looks like as it prints. You can clearly see the ooze shield being constructed around the part. And here's the finished product. As you can see, the ooze shield comes right off.
That was kind of neat.
Looking more closely at the ooze shield, you can see all these little strings and blobs along the side. The ooze shield keeps all of these defects from appearing on your print.
Oh.
As you can see, this part printed with crisp definition between colors, and it looks great. So next time you want to print in two colors, the Dual Extrusion Wizard in Simplify 3D will get you there in just a few clicks.
So, actually very neat. And I'll just cut to this screen here. So do you have any questions or feedback on that, James? Now,
Yeah, the what you call it, the ooze shield?
Right.
I wonder if that's what I kind of needed in my prints, was some sort of ooze shield, because it was just all over the place when I tried. And you know, I kept thinking maybe my bed wasn't level or the heads aren't completely level on my machine. But looking at, you know, having to configure everything the way that they do, maybe I need to give it another shot with the wizard. So
yeah, well, what I would probably do is first use two similar PLA materials into both filaments and verify that you get that all calibrated, and then jump to dissimilar materials and, you know, go from a known to an unknown, and that way at least you eliminate the possibility of calibration out of it, and try that. But Yeah, if you get some time this week, how about maybe doing it and then
Yeah.
giving us some feedback next week how it worked out for you.
Will do.
Okay. Well, we have Nicolas joining us way over the pond in France. Now, we became friends over the past week. We both were speakers at TEDx. I don't remember if it's Sibyllis or Sibyllis, but the two of us together had presented, and one of the things that I've already talked about was your cool Bionicle hand, and how realistic it was in its grip and its ability to function. So I had an opportunity to go out to your, let's see, I think this is your blog. It's funny, it came up in Russian. Do you speak Russian as well? You're muted right now. Was that intentional? If you can hear me, go ahead and unmute your mic. Maybe I can do it on my end. Can you hear me? So why don't you check to see, because right now I can't hear you. I'm not getting any sound from you. There we go.
No. There you go.
Now I can hear you. So I had a chance, Nicolas, to look at your... Go ahead, sorry.
So yes, the blog is in Russian this time because we were at a Geek Picnic 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago in Russia. It's a kind of maker fair, but Russian.
Oh, a Russian version. Okay, cool.
Russian version, yeah. Hand of Man was there. I don't know if you heard of them.
Who was it? What were their names?
Hand of Man.
No, I haven't.
They are at Burning Man or at Maker Fair or Coachella Festival. It's a huge, massive hand made of steel that is commanded with your own hand, and that you can crush cars with it or piano. And they are based in New Mexico.
It was made where?
They are based in New Mexico.
New Mexico in United States?
United States, yes, indeed.
How funny. So I actually have your little video here, which is what I started it off with, showing how you were able to control, I'm assuming with this little section here, if you can see my cursor, that maybe you can give us a little bit an overview, because I'm not even going to try. But you have some way of controlling with your own electrical impulses from your own muscles the actual hand itself. Is that correct, Nicolas?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll play your little video again, and maybe you can tell us kind of what's going on.
So, oh yeah, this one is a hackathon that was organized in a very big education center in Brittany, where I live. And I am, on this video, I am actually controlling the hand with a Bluetooth brace called GHOA, made by a company called Talmic Labs, based in Canada. And this GHOA costs about $200 and is connected to the smartphone, and the smartphone sends the informations to the hand. So it's the brace is more or less a brace with a lot of muscle sensors inside and connected with a Bluetooth connection. So you can actually control your computer, you can control the heat of your house, you can control it for anything you want, your video game if you want. So we just wanted to hack it in a way I would be able to control it, to control the hand with it.
That's very cool.
Very cool. So have you heard of Inspector Gadget?
Yes.
For some reason, that's what came to mind. I don't know why, but
yeah,
you're kind of like the Inspector Gadget. You need to get yourself a trench coat.
Did you have this comic in the United States in the past?
Yes, we did. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Okay.
my kids. I was about to say my kids. Actually, the person next to you is my. This is my son James. So,
Oh, that's
so James, did you watch this when you were a kid?
I did. I did watch Inspector Gadget. Da na 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 na. Yeah, I got it. I got it.
How funny. So, you know, the reason I had you on is because we had some time to speak a little about it. So, you know, instead of talking separately, I thought I'd come have you on. Now, from what I've read, you've used different 3D printing techniques and materials. What was this hand made out of?
So this hand is made by Open Bionics. It's a startup based in Bristol, in UK. And this hand is entirely 3D printed with Flexi Ninja Flex, and socket has the particularity to be printed with Ninja Flex mixed with medical material. That makes it, let's say, bodyproof.
Oh, okay. So the prosthetic that you were wearing in France, what was that a finished product, or did you also have that one 3D printed somewhere?
You mean the one we were working on?
The one you were wearing, yes.
The one I was wearing is this one.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
is my hand. This hand is actually made by a German company called Autobach.
Oh.
So this Mayo hand is a classical Mayo hand. The price is about $6,000 or $7,000 for the hand,
Okay.
and the entire prosthetic hand is about $10,000. So this is not the prototype we've been working on. It's the hand I have for daily use.
Okay.
Which is
So,
actually, yeah.
So what is, you know, obviously you've got this already, so what is the motivation to create a different type of hand?
So the motivation is that I don't have access to these very expensive hands. So this is the first motivation. Secondly, I find it really interesting to work on that field because I am totally concerned about this problem. And I've been using a Mayo hand for the last 13 years. My accident was in 2002. So I really want to upgrade.
Nope. Not hearing you.
So is this a more affordable hand then?
So you're working
Yeah.
towards, okay. So how much do you think this will cost versus the one that you're wearing right now?
I think the cost for, because we have to be honest and fair about the price between something cheap and something robust that people would use. This is very important, not to make something cheap just because it's cheap, but something
Right.
robust. So for my own hand, I guess we can go down to $1,500 for something robust, because
Yeah, so
it,
almost
it's
one,
even,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, about 1/10 the cost.
yeah. If we work in a cooperation way with Fab Labs, universities, companies, in an open source way, it's definitely possible.
Okay. Well, if you remember, I sent you, I hope that you got it, I CC'd John Schull, who's part of Enable, as well as Adrian? I can't remember, who's the 3D print scientist for Autodesk, and hopefully they can get back to you and possibly get the word out, or maybe even lend you some technical help. You're probably well ahead and may not need their help, but I know both of them, and they've been really involved in obviously producing something, and I do think they're moving into providing something that you have been working on, which is the ability to use your own muscle electrical impulses to control the hand. So I don't know if you've been introduced to them in the past, but if so, or if not, hopefully that was a good introduction and you may be able to work with them as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, Mike, because I'm sorry to jump in, but do you remember my neighbor Lois who worked for HP?
Yes.
Her husband Chris, which I think you met him too. He actually only has one hand as well, and I talked to him about the Enable, and he said the doctors told him that they would have to cut off more of his arm to get it to work, but this product, you know, being able to control it with the muscles is it looks really interesting. I'll have to show him.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons I like to have people like Nicolas on. They're doing a whole lot of great stuff out there. The other thing, and then Nicolas had talked to me, since I do 3D scanning, and I didn't really think about it until you mentioned it, Nicolas, and that is to be able to scan the portion that no longer has the limb. What would be what would you call it, the proper way to say it? But the remaining part, so that way you can create a scan that is accurate to that person, and then you can create, as you mentioned, the other end of the prosthetic so it has a perfect fit. Because I remember somebody telling me that's about the most horrible thing about prosthetics is they don't ever fit right, and they rub wrong, and so I thought that was brilliant on your part to mention that, and I don't know why I didn't think about that, but I will see if I can find somebody and try that out and see how well it'll work. Too bad that we didn't have time. I would have loved to do that for you, and then you could have done it. But we'll work something out. So we're about done. Like I said, I was only going to take about 10 minutes of your time. What would you like to tell us, our audience? And, you know, you're using 3D printing and to create this version. What would you like to tell our audience as far as how they can utilize, you know, open source and off-the-shelf parts to do what you're doing?
If some people are interested in that kind of research, I think it's important to work with. I think it's important to mix people, not to be only, you know, between makers or geeks, or because the problem is that prosthetists have their way to see disability, and disabled people have a need, and as a maker or makers, it's another point of view. So I think for people interested in working in disability, let's say prosthetic fields and 3D printing, it's important to work together. If like prosthetists, makers, engineers, makers, to learn from each other. This is very important. This is what I have to say, more or less.
Well, it's a very important point, and as you know, I've been doing this podcast, gosh, about 1 3/4 years now. The thing that I have found in many of the people that I've talked to is just that. You have to talk with a lot of people and get a lot of feedback. And the new, you know, I can't say it's new, but this new maker phenomena, which is now, you know, it's a worldwide phenomena, is really starting to bring people from a lot of different disciplines together because they all share the same thing. They want to create, and I think that's really been helpful. And obviously, to see your inspiring story, I hope that for those who see this show, reach out to him, take an opportunity to see what he can do to help you. Maybe if you would, send me some links other than what I've got for your blog. As part of, you know, if there are parts out there that you can recommend to people who want to try to do this themselves and kind of work with you on it. So again, I thank you for coming on, Nicolas, and we'll obviously chat later down the line and see where we can go with this. And yeah, I appreciate you mentioning how we can use scanning other than, you know, my idea originally was to scan the good limb and use that as a possibility. And the other thing I told Siobhan is, why don't we do like master scans of people, like when they're adults or maybe even children, like every year, so that way if somebody does lose a limb, you'll have an accurate model. So if you wanted something to match what was, you would have it like a library, which kind of goes hand in hand what I suggested in my talk, that people should get MRIs or CT, not necessarily CT, that's getting better, but there's a radiation involved, like once a year or something, so that there's a concern that people will overdiagnose, but at least you'll have a reference. If it weren't for, as I mentioned, the MRI in my wife's case, we would never have known until maybe it was too late. And there are so many things that as this technology improves that can help with. So obviously, I'm a big technology fan, so I can see this being very useful. And I don't know if it would have helped you be able to have that like master 3D library of all your parts, so that you could have an exact. But the other thing I thought of was just creating a reverse, a mirror, obviously using, in your case, let's see, it was your right arm, but if you had just mirrored your left arm, I guess it could have worked. So I have thought of that for some time, and that's kind of the goal that I was thinking of. But thank you for giving me another opportunity to look at something different. So I appreciate that. Okay, well, with that, you're welcome to stay on and listen to the rest of the show, Nicolas, or if you've got to run off, I know, gosh, what is it, about 10 o'clock now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, unlike in Spain where people stay up to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you probably don't do that on a regular basis. So I'll let you go, but you're again welcome to stay on. And if there's something that you feel that you can contribute to, we've got a few items. I'm going to do an open box of that Ultimaker 2 Go that you saw at the show in about 3 or 4 minutes. So you're welcome to see more about it if you want to learn more about it, or
Okay,
I'll talk with you at another time. Again, thank you, Nicolas, for coming on. So that was Nicolas, who's from France, and obviously one of my fellow speakers at the TEDx, and really nice guy, and I think he's done some very creative and unique, innovative things. So let's move on to my next item, and my note thing is fallen asleep again, so give me a pause. So I think I'm going to go right into the polygon. I saw this the other day before I go into the open box, because I'm going to have to switch cameras for that. But I thought this was kind of neat. Let's see, what's that? There we go. So if you're into Delta printers, and there's a few companies creating with this person, and I've never heard of Tindy, for about $400 you can buy all the mechanical or structural parts for this, but you can't. I'm going to mute you. Don't take it personal. I can't mute him. Oh well. There we go. Sorry about that, Nicolas. But this is a Delta printer. They're showing it as 400. It includes all of these, the structural components, as well as here it gives you what the kit includes. So essentially everything except the hot end, and it identifies the price of it, the 3D printer controller board, and the AC adapter kit, which is required obviously to be able to run it for power. It identifies whatever, based upon the board that you're working with, what it will work with. For instance, if you're using a RAMPS board. And I do know the Simplify 3D does print with Delta printers, so you could use that as your slicer. So if you're wanting to create yourself a little Delta printer, the print bed is not that, the diameter isn't that wide. So you're not going to get very large print off of this Delta printer. But if you want some experiments, but the cool thing behind this, and I was hoping to have him on today, but he had to pick up his kids. So obviously that's more important than being on my show. But one of the things, the reason I looked into this is that he uses some unique take. Let's see if we have a little video that I can show you. Yeah, here we go. One, he uses magnetic mount systems, so you can remove the hot end just like that. He has a connector up there, let's see if he shows it, that connects the electrical to it, so the whole thing can be removed very quickly. I don't know what that is hanging out of it, but this thing also has an auto bed leveler, which I think he'll show here in a moment. Yeah, it's called the touch probe. So that way you can use that to determine your calibration. I've tried to use that in the past with my Delta and didn't really like it, so I manually calibrate all of mine. He's built a handle into it. He's built into a filament drive, which is very important. Something that in my Castle Clear I had to do on my own. And notice he's got a little turn screw there, which I think is kind of neat. Something I don't have. You have to kind of push it through, which isn't always the best way. He has a magnetic mounted bed, which is kind of nice because it allows you to remove it very quickly to remove the parts from it. And then he has the power box with USB control. And notice there is no LCD display on this, which isn't a huge issue because I'm running my Maker Gear M2 without the LCD panel now. I just have it hooked up to a small computer to simplify 3D. So it's not a huge need. To me, I felt it was easier to buy a $300 Nook, which is the Intel little small computer about this big, and use that on the back of an old LCD panel as my print controller. It's worked very well, and I can control multiple printers with it. But he's pulling it apart. You're seeing the stepper motors there, so it looks like it's well designed and clean. He doesn't have any wires hooked up, which is interesting, but I guess that they all hook up properly. So kind of a neat product.
What is the benefit of Delta printers?
Well, one of the things about deltas is, and one of the reasons they're called deltas, instead of using a Cartesian movement system where you have an X, Y, Z linear system, you can you essentially take the delta coordinates of your XY positioning and move 3 stepper motors on 3 different axes. And by moving them in different positions, let's see, I think, yeah, you can cause the head to go up, down, or to a particular location on a standard XY. So essentially, think of it as a polar conversion from a rectangular to a polar conversion, and then you apply that to the 3 stepper motors, which then gives you the proper positioning both on the Z as well as in the X and Y. The big benefit is lower costs because, as you notice, the frame process is easier. The second thing is build size can be scaled much larger. In fact, you'll see some of the huge, one of the companies that we've had on, CNC, has something called the Big Daddy or something like that. That's this huge Delta printer. I mean, it's just like huge. And I don't know what they print out of it. I don't know if it's plastic. It's some type of material. And then somebody else has created a ceramic version where it literally can create pottery, which I think is kind of cool. But you can scale them very easily at very little expense. As long as you have the stepper motors that can drive a larger print head, then it works properly.
How about calibration?
Calibration to me is about as straightforward. If you notice, each of these, there's normally belts that control the stepper motor, which I think is housed up here, and it moves it up and down. So what you need is that there are switches, like on the Cartesian up here. So when you bring it up to the home position, which in this case would be the top, each of those have to be at a proper level, if that makes any sense.
Gotcha.
And drop down so much in order to determine where it is from the bottom of the bed. So you calibrate the switches up on top by sliding them, and then bring it down and then measure the same way with a little feeler gauge, which is what I use, at multiple points on the XY, so around the bed, kind of like a Cartesian. So I can't remember. I think I do like 6 points all around the bed. One thing that I've done, you can do it that I've also put in a very fine control spring adjustment on the bed itself so that I can do some fine tuning without having to mess with those steppers. So I've simplified it, at least in my case, with a little bit of fine control. But the other way is they can do it automatically by putting a switch in here, so as to, if it's at the same level as the hot end, when it clicks, it determines where it should be exactly on the bed, and then it calibrates the delta difference between the point that it's set for and the amount it needs to change in order to make sure it's at the proper distance. I found that it's, you know, it might be better now, but it wasn't as effective as doing it manually. The results weren't always consistent. So the big thing is your delta bed has to be completely level, and then you do all your other adjustments up here in the micro switches, and that's just by moving them up and down. But the nice thing is that it incorporates a lot of interesting features for a very low cost. So if you're into a low cost Delta type printer, you might want to look them up. As mentioned, I was hoping to have him on. Maybe we'll have him on next week to talk a little bit more himself about it. So that's.
I saw a Delta printer. I was trying to find right now the video I saw on it, but I think it was called Yobi or something. But it was a unibody Delta printer.
Yep, we've actually had them on. That was a Kickstarter, I think. Very low cost. It was a unibody design. Yeah, very cool. And I can't remember the name either. But yeah, we'll bring it up next week or put it in the show notes. However, that's going to be a fully assembled kit. I think it was $500 to $700, something in that price. Very low cost. But if you're into kits, want something reasonable, there's another person out there, which we just talked about, CME CNC, have also created a small Delta printer. They're actually kind of the kings of Delta printers. They have the Rostock Max, which is what Chris has, but they're also making a mini version. So, and I think that one will be around $800 when it comes out fully assembled. Or I think you can buy it in kit form as well, but that will include all the parts. So that's about it for what's going on in that area. And then my tablet went to sleep again. Should have. Okay, so, the unboxing. Oh, the important thing. So when I was at the show, and I'm going to have to switch to another mic, so give me a moment to do that. So do you have anything to talk about, James?
Yeah, I got I guess a print of my progression in my little robot.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and talk about that, and I'll switch mics.
Sure. So I got what I used is a Centrifuge fan design, and trying to get more torque, more power in a radial movement using pneumatics. Pneumatics is often used in a lot of automation type of tasks. So because you can build pneumatics with 3D printers, I was trying to reduce cost and be able to control everything and print everything. So here is the Centrifuge. It's got little fans on the end.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I mentioned very cool. Wow.
Yeah. So it's got fans on the ends. Then what I did is this is a roller skate bearing, and I made it fit into the actual piece.
Cool.
So one of the things that I've had to do is print parts a couple of times. Again, a good reason to have a 3D printer as an engineer or a person just making things, because I had to print this piece, twice, because the first one, even though I put this exact same dimension on the outside, when it printed, I guess maybe it expanded or something, the bearing couldn't fit. So I had to print it again, just a little bit different, and then the piece fit in perfectly. So one of the benefits to having a 3D printer. So this bearing right here goes into this housing. This is where the air goes into. Mm-hmm. And it travels along here and it pushes in, and then it spins the centrifuge around, and if you can see inside, I've got a little piece that sticks out right here that the bearing fits into.
Cool.
So you go like that, and it can spin around in the housing, so the air comes out of here. So that's what I've been working on, and
excellent. Wow, super.
Yeah, I've had actually some success finally
Yay.
in getting radial movement. Yeah.
So what did you print that in?
ABS. I've kind of given up on Polymax. It's very, very strong, but I guess it doesn't combine as nice. It doesn't like melt together. You can kind of maybe see on here, I have the Polymax. You can kind of see all the, you know, the different strands.
The temperature?
I forgot what temperature I put it at, but I put it at where it recommended it. But PLA, same kind of thing. I get strings and other things. ABS for me is I've gotten the best results out of. So I'm kind of an ABS fan right now, at least. So
well, we'll have to talk about that Polymax. That's been the best stuff for me. So I'm wondering what's going on with that.
yeah.
Oh well, if it's working for you with ABS, other than it's going to kill you if you stay in the same room. No, just kidding. But yeah, that's pretty nice, James. That really, man, that's coming along.
Yeah.
So does it? Okay. So does it work though? Aesthetically, it looks pleasing. Does it work?
Yeah. I hooked it up to a compressor, and it moved the PVC that I needed to move, and try not to get too much into the project, but it moved some weight. So I was yeah, and I've got another version coming out that's going to be using a larger bearing. This just came in the mail. And this is going to go on the top.
The mini-me, huh?
Well, I'm still going to use this bearing, but this one goes on top, so it's going to have two places to sit on, because the arm that sticks out was wobbling too much. So anyways, I've got some goodies to play with this week.
Cool. Oh man, you can give us another report.
I will.
Okay. Well, great progress on your part, man. I know it's been frustrating for you, but man, it looks like a good part, and it turned out well. All right, well, let's move on into our final item for the day, and that is the unboxing of the Ultimaker to go. You know, I've kind of had a, what would you call, an up-down relationship with Ultimaker. I got one of their first Ultimaker 2s, and it was you know, I think it was one of the first off the assembly line, and there were a few issues I had with it, but when I was able to print, it actually gave me some of the better qualities. As mentioned, it was one of the first skulls that I printed. But the other thing, and one of the reasons that I respect them so much, is that they've taken so much time to actually be a part of both the open source. They've actually released all the designs to the Ultimaker. So if you wanted to create your own, you can. Plus, CURA is open source and available to anyone to use with their printers. So that right there is remarkable. Plus, Eric Bryan, who is the CEO of Ultimaker, has been a really super guy and has been on our show and supported us in our efforts. So I really like that. And then the other thing that has caught my attention, because now that I've been involved with some of these makers and with my own project, is how they've worked with Enable and other nonprofit groups, either by providing the printers at cost or even giving them to them so that they can use them to print things. And I think that really stands out. You know, I know some of the others have been using them, providing them to educational markets, but being from the Netherlands, and the fact is that they've become so worldwide known for their ability to support others, I think is really something to look at. Plus, Make Magazine rated it as one of their top printers. It essentially passed all of their prints or tests with flying colors. Now, if there's a downside, and it's a minor one, because they've now redone the prices, it's still somewhat of an expensive printer. It is a single extruder printer. They have the standard Ultimaker, which is about $2,000 if you convert it in euros. And then they have the 2X, which is a larger. And you know, I'm spending my time talking here, and I should actually go out to their website, so I'll do that. So they have, let's look at their family. They've got 3 of them. They have the, come on, hurry up. They have the standard Ultimaker 2, which is what I purchased last year, one of the first. They have the 2X, which has a larger or taller bed. It's the same bed size but taller, so you can do larger objects. And then they have this new Ultimaker to go, which I think is cute. I said you need to make it the mini-me, not the to go, but there's a reason for that, and that's what we're going to do today. So let me jump to that camera, and there you go. And I've got my brain behind me there.
It's very cool.
All right, so I'm going to have to detach my earpiece, but you can still hear me. All right, so here is the actual box itself. So I'm going to have to put it on the floor. Now, keep in mind that I actually brought this with me from Spain. They had actually delivered it to Spain, so I brought it back with me. It cost me $65 as a standard shipping item. But one of the reasons that was possible is because it's fairly lightweight. It's less than 23 kilograms. So I think, I don't know what that converts out to. James, do you know off the top of your head?
No idea.
If not, we'll look it up. But it comes in this. So if you can see it here, it's kind of a dense foam material, and it comes with a belt system. I've already suggested that one of the things that I found that happened right away is that this belt slipped and I almost dropped it. So luckily I had my other hand on it. So I've suggested they have another locking mechanism up here to make sure that it doesn't expand. Or maybe I just didn't do it right, but it did slip on me. The other thing I was suggesting, if you notice when you put the strap on, there really isn't a handle, so I'm going to probably 3D print one next week so that you can have a handle, or maybe make a cloth handle. So I've suggested in the future that they have something like that, because you really want to make sure. Oh, that's why. On this side, I used to tighten it and it slips. So you want to make sure that this goes off to the side here and is really secure to keep it all together, because you'll see in a moment how this thing fits together. So once you unrelease that, there's a little top section here you can lift off, and this has your booklet. You're kind of, hey, welcome to the Ultimaker world, and kind of tells you all your parts. So it's very informative. And then, one of the things I thought was neat in their previous version, here's your glass bed. Now notice it's not that big because it's the mini-me version. Tape, glue, everything that you need to get started, a USB cable. So they thought of everything. Now, as mentioned, this is the international version, but I'm assuming that I should be able to just switch it out, because the other end of this is a standard PC type connector. So I'll be able to switch this out with a regular cable. Like a lot of products, they're both 110 and 240 or 220. And then here's your spool that you can put on it. So they come with all kinds, and actually they even come with an extra hot end nozzle. So they provided a lot of stuff here in a very well assembled or enclosed environment so that you can take it with you. That's why they call it the Ultimaker to go. So once you have all your parts, you can lift it up, and there you go. So on the bottom of it, so you have a fully mobile system. So I think they really thought this out, and I don't know if you can see here. I'll bring it here. There you go. So, so essentially, it's just like the size of the others, except smaller. Now, the hot end system, if I remember correctly, I still have it all packaged in. It's got zip ties to keep it from moving. So I haven't cut them out yet. But it looks just like the Ultimaker's hot end, an extrusion system up here, and also includes the fans that you can see in here. In fact, it's almost identical. So the only thing they've really done is obviously made the dimensions of it smaller, so that you have less material, It uses a twin. Let's see if I can put it up. Like the previous, it uses a twin arm system for support for both the X and Y stepper motors, and then a standard dual with the Z-axis back here. So for the most part, it's kind of a standardized Cartesian-based 3D printer. This uses 3mm, but actually it's like 2.85mm filament. They include a small roll of silver in the back of it. Like mentioned, it has a little place, if you can see it, to store it. So when you're ready, I think you can actually run the whole thing while it's sitting in the bottom of the case here, which is, like I said, the dense foam. And then you just plug it in, or maybe I'm wrong there. Yeah, I guess you have to actually take it out of it to operate it. But it's a nice, safe container. It's included in the price, and I think the price of this is about $1,200 for the whole thing. Now, a caveat behind the smaller version is that it does not have a heated bed, so it's good only with PLA. And you know, even though James mentioned he's had problems with Polymax, I do want to try the Polymax on it. Why? Because it can only do Polymax. So without a heated bed, it's important that you use a material that can stick to it. And this is where the glue sticks come into play. I'm not a big fan of the tape. So other than that, it looks like it's got the same Bowden extruder, which I'm not a huge fan of, which is one of the reasons they use the thicker filament, because it looks like the whole time I was doing this, I thought I had myself. So for those of you, and I didn't see me, this is the unit itself, the Ultimaker to go that I unboxed. So I'm going to put it back together. So in reverse, if my camera didn't switch properly. And like I said, it is almost identical to the Ultimaker, except shrunken down to a smaller size. It only supports PLA because it doesn't have a heated bed. Other than that, the hot end is almost identical. The extruder, a Bowden extruder, is identical to the Ultimaker, the other two models. The control board is the same. It still has the same jog wheel, SD card slot to be able to all run it independently of a computer, but you can use a standard USB connection to run CURA directly to it. So you have both choices. Yeah, it's a nice little compact printer. Over the next week, I'm going to play with it, print some things out, and give more of a feedback and review next week. So in reverse, I'm going to put it back together. So again, here's the base, which again is a very dense foam. And then, like I said, you put the spool in the back slot, and then you put the top over it. Make sure I've got it right. It's actually, it can only go on one way. There. You put the materials in there. You put the top back on. You put the strap back on, which I won't do. There you go. And then, like I said, you need a handle for it, but you're able to take it off and do whatever you want with it. So it's very mobile. They're looking at selling this for schools. Obviously, something like this would be very effective for schools. It is the Ultimaker brand, as mentioned, is one of the better 3D printers out there. As mentioned, it is a little pricey, but I think well worth it. So, Ultimaker to go. Okay, so I'm going to plug myself back in. What do you think, James?
Interesting. I think it's about $1,300 US. So
okay,
I think it's 1,200 euros.
Okay, so 1,200 euros, about 13. I think it's 1.1 multiplier from euros to dollars.
Yeah.
Whatever that works out to, which is about 1,300.
Yeah.
However, in saying that, they do have a U.S. distributor now, so we'd have to actually go out and look at what it was. When I bought mine, it actually had to be delivered through DHL, which was pricey and took like 2 weeks. Now that they have a U.S. distributor, that no longer will be the issue. Yeah, so I was pretty impressed with my Ultimaker. One of the reasons is because we had some medical bills to pay off. It was the one with the best resale value, so it was my easiest choice, but also my sad choice because I kind of was partial. I really liked the clean lines. It kind of reminded me of the White Room in what was the second and third episodes of The Matrix. So I kind of, I don't know, I was partial to it. So very clean. As mentioned, it took Make Award for the best printer for obvious reasons. It's a very clean, very accurate printer. In fact, this is the one that I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were on yet, that can actually print down to 20 microns. And they actually have a new setting now that can support that. I think it can go down, accuracy is to 20, but I think the lowest is like 40. I don't know. I shouldn't guess. I should actually.
I think I saw 20 on there.
Okay. Here we go. Let's look at. Oh, I didn't
Up
want
to
do
20
that.
microns.
Okay. So that's pretty good for an FDM printer. I mean, those are the figures you normally see for. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Okay, well, enough talk about the Ultimaker. As mentioned, I'm going to be playing with it over the next week, and I'll give a more robust report on its operations then. See how well the material sticks to it. I'm going to order a 3mm roll from Polymax so that I can try out my favorite. Sorry, it's not your favorite. The Polymax PLA. And see if I run into the same issue as James. Maybe I just was able to tweak my printer here, the Maker Gear M2, to really work well with it. But who knows? Maybe it doesn't work as well on all types of printers. Okay, with that, I am going to switch back to my other mic. All right, can you hear me again?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a nice little mobile mic, but it doesn't have the quality of my desk mic. So on that note, I think we can end it. I do not know where Chris is. You know, it's funny. He did add some notes in the show notes, but he didn't let me know why he's not on. So again, I apologize for Chris not being with us. We always like to hear the print whisperer talk about something cool in that perspective, but we'll have to again wait till next week. I'll have to go call him and say, "Where have you been?" Just kidding. So thank you, James, for showing up. And this
always a pleasure.
Thank you. So we're actually covering 2 weeks. You guys didn't run one last week, and I wasn't going to do one next week. So we took July 4th off, I guess.
Yes, we did.
So last week is now this week, so we're actually covering the time frame from the 28th of June to the 10th of July. And so again, thank everyone for tuning in to us. We really appreciate you being one of our visitors and watchers. And until next time, bye.
See ya.